Hi there. Really quickly, who remembers the movie Dumb and Dumber? Jim Carrey, Jeff Daniels, Lauren Holly was made for a budget of like 17 million, went on to make like 250 million. Iconic film with some iconic lines, especially this one when Jim Carrey's character is pouring his heart out to Lauren Holly's character. And it's like, lay it to me straight. What are my chances with you? Like 1 in 100? And she turns and she says, more like 1 in a million. To which he responds, so you're saying there's a chance? Ladies and gentlemen, I come to you with this view from the 40 to say, I'm looking at the Red Black season, and I might sound like I'm losing my marbles, but for the playoffs, there's a chance. Now, let's go through my different stages of this season with the Red Blacks, because we're kind of coming into the third stage. The first stage was me coming to you and saying, you know what? Yeah, they're like 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 1 and 5, but they're not as bad as their record. The games they're losing are close. They're so close. This team is just coming together. They're just learning to gel. They're going to make us proud. They're going to turn it around. It's going to happen. That was phase one. Then after the last two home games, especially against Calgary and against Edmonton, coming out of those games and seeing Ottawa, with all due respect, being pretty flat, not being able to find their way, just complete lack of like enthusiasm and energy. I'm like, maybe they are their record. I mean, I'm not seeing competitive football. I don't care if they win or they lose. I just want to see competitive football, and I'm not seeing that. It's like this team has no heart. This team has no energy. And everyone's like, oh, you go on the Facebooks and the Twitters. Everyone's like, oh, get rid of lap police and all this stuff, which is always the default. But I'm like, no, this team needs some team building. Get them to like escape manner. Get them to do something to bring themselves together because it's just not there. That was phase two. Ladies and gentlemen, we've entered phase three of the 2020 season in my mind. And phase three is there's kind of a chance. Now, it sounds absolutely crazy. The last time I saw the Red Blacks play in TD Place, they were 1 and 8. Now they're 2 and 8. Woo, 2 and 8. Well, hold on a minute. The greatest thing that the Red Blacks have going for them isn't their coach, isn't their fans, isn't the fact that they're this underdog. No, the greatest thing going for the Ottawa Redblacks, in my opinion, right now, is that they play in the Eastern Division. Now, if they played in the Western Division, this would be a non-story. This would be done. It would be like, what are we here to talk about? It's over. It's finished. But they play in the East. The top team in the Eastern Division is the Toronto Argonauts with a record of 5 and 5. After them, we've got the Montreal Alouettes with a record of 4 and 6. Then Hamilton with 3 and 8, Ottawa and 2 and 8. Juxtapose that with the Western Division. The fourth place team in the Western Division, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, have a record of 6 and 5. Now, the way the CFL playoffs work is there is a crossover. So that basically means that if the fourth place team in the Western Division is better than the third place team in the Eastern Division, then that Western team crosses over. I'm not saying that Ottawa has to win the Eastern Division. All they have to do is come in second. Now, this year's scheduling is somewhat bizarre to me. Historically, what would happen is you would play every single team at least 2 times. So every Western team, all 5 of them would come to Ottawa, and we in turn would go to all of their stadiums through the course of the year. Not so in 2022. I'm not exactly sure why, and I don't even know how I missed it, but that's not the case. That's kind of why the Saskatchewan Roughriders aren't coming here. That's why we're not going to Calgary. It's just not happening. Ottawa has 8 games remaining, and 7 of those games are against Eastern teams. The only outlier is the BC Lions. So you mean to tell me we have 3 games against Montreal, 2 games against Toronto, and 2 games against Hamilton? You mean to tell me out of those games, you don't think that we could put together some wins? It is indeed possible. There hasn't been one team from the Eastern Division that has stood out as being by far the best. It's been very much a luck of the draw type of thing. Now, Ottawa has to obviously play better. They have to get wins, but they're not playing stronger teams in the latter half of the season. Everyone's up in arms in a positive way because we're coming into Labor Day, which usually means the halfway mark. And if you're giving the Ottawa Redblacks a grade, with all due respect, with a 2 and 8 record, it's got to be an F or a D if you want to be nice. It's not great. But the Ottawa Redblacks don't need a winning record to get into the playoffs. All they need to do is be the second team in the Eastern Division. Because let's be honest, as soon as you get to the playoffs, whether you're favored by the odds or not, the slate is clean. We talk a lot about the crossover, and yes, the Western Division does seem so much more dominant than the East, but there's never been a Western team that's crossed over and won the crossover game. That just doesn't happen. No Western team has crossed over, I should say, more particularly, and has gone to the Grey Cup. It just doesn't happen. It's never happened. All Ottawa has to do is come in second. We can talk about Paul LaPolice and whether or not he's a good coach, and we can talk about this quarterback, that quarterback, receivers dropping things, defenders not protecting. That was in the first half. Slate clean right now. Let's get into the second half of the season and how things go. I am not sitting here submitting for you that the Ottawa REDBLACKS are going to win the Grey Cup. That's not what this conversation is about. This conversation is about saying a lot of people were very lukewarm on the Ottawa REDBLACKS. I was very disappointed leaving the last two games, thinking to myself, again, not overly fussed if you lose, but at least show me some effort. And I wasn't seeing that. I'm hoping the win last week in Edmonton rejuvenizes this team to the point where they realize, hey, we're not out of it yet. They're not out of it yet because they play in a division with respect is not very strong. The Ottawa REDBLACKS very well could make a march to the playoffs. As a season ticket holder, we have that built in where we have a playoff ticket. This year, we actually might get a chance to use it because there's a very strong possibility that a Western team, that fourth place team, will cross over and play Ottawa. I'm not submitting for you that's going to happen. But what I am saying is looking at the numbers, looking at the schedule, looking at the fact that Ottawa plays in a division that is not great, I'm telling you there's a chance.